Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachadi Chatarne. And to each other, Panchakalpa Durvyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Pachita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jagadish, can you turn the volume up a little bit? So for everyone online, you can note the subtitles at the bottom of the page. This will help you to follow along. So we're on chapter 78, the killing of Dantavakra, Vidurat, and Romaharshan. After the demise of Sishupal, Salva and Paundraka, a foolish demoniac king of the name Dantavakra, wanted to kill Krishna to avenge the death of his friend Salva. He became so agitated that he appeared on the battlefield without the proper arms and ammunition, and without even a chariot. His only weapon was his great anger, which was red hot. He carried only a club in his hand, but he was so powerful that when he moved, everyone felt the earth tremble. When Lord Krishna saw him approaching in a very heroic mood, he immediately got down from his chariot, for it was a rule of military etiquette that fighting should take place only between equals. Knowing that Dantavakra was alone and armed with only a club, Lord Krishna responded similarly and prepared himself by taking his club in his hand. When Krishna appeared before him, Dantavakra's heroic march was immediately stopped, just as the great, furious waves of the ocean are stopped by the beach.
At that time, Dantavakra, who was the king of Karusha, stood firmly with his club and spoke to Lord Krishna as follows. It is a great pleasure and fortunate opportunity, Krishna, that we are seeing each other face to face. My dear Krishna, after all, you are my maternal cousin, and I should not kill you in this way. But unfortunately, you have committed a great mistake by killing my friend Shalva. Moreover, you are not satisfied by killing my friend. I know that you want to kill me also. Because of your determination, I must kill you by tearing you to pieces with my club. Krishna, although you are my relative, you are foolish. You are our great enemy. So I must kill you today, just as a person removes a boil on his body by a surgical operation. I am always very much obliged to my friends, and I therefore consider myself indebted to my dear friend Shalva. I can liquidate my indebtedness to him only by killing you.
As the caretaker of an elephant tries to control the animal by striking it with his trident, Dantavakra tried to control Krishna simply by speaking strong words. After finishing his vituperation, he struck Krishna on the head with his club and made a roaring sound like a lion. But Krishna, although struck strongly by the club of Dantavakra, did not move even an inch, nor did he feel any pain. Taking his Kaumodaki club and moving very skillfully, Krishna struck Dantavakra's chest so fiercely that Dantavakra's heart split in twain. As a result, Dantavakra began to vomit blood, his hair scattered, and he fell to the ground, spreading his hands and legs. Within only a few minutes, all that remained of Dantavakra was a dead body on the ground. After the death of Dantavakra, just as at the time of Shishupala's death, in the presence of all the persons standing there, a small particle of spiritual effulgence came out of the demon's body and very wonderfully merged into the body of Lord Krishna.
Dantavakra had a brother named Viduratha, who was overwhelmed with grief at Dantavakra's death. Out of grief and anger, Viduratha was breathing very heavily, and just to avenge the death of his brother, he appeared before Lord Krishna with a sword and a shield in his hands. He wanted to kill Krishna immediately. When Lord Krishna understood that Viduratha was looking for the opportunity to strike him with his sword, he employed his Sudarshan chakra, his razor-sharp disc, and without delay cut off Viduratha's head with its helmet and earrings.
In this way, after killing Salva and destroying his wonderful airplane, and then killing Dantavakra and Viduratha, Lord Krishna at last entered his city, Dwarka. It would not have been possible for anyone but Krishna to kill these great heroes, and therefore all the demigods from heaven and the human being on the surface of the globe were glorifying him. Great sages and ascetics, the denizens of the Siddha and Gandharva planets, the denizens known as Vidyadharas, Vasuki, and the Mahanagas, the beautiful angels, the inhabitant of Pitraloka, the Yakshas, the Kinnaras, and the Shanaras all showered flowers upon him, and sang song of his victory in great jubilant. Decorating the entire city very festively, the citizens of Dwarka held a great celebration. And when Lord Krishna passed through the city, all the members of the Vrishni dynasty and the heroes of the Yadu dynasty followed him with great respect. There are some of the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the master of all mystic powers and the lord of cosmic manifestations. Those who are fools and who are like animals sometimes think that Krishna is defeated, but factually he is supreme personality of Godhead, and no one can defeat him. He always remains victorious over everyone. He alone is a god, and all others are his subservient order carriers.
Once upon a time, Lord Balram heard that an arrangement was being made for a fight between the two rival parties in the Kuru dynasty, one headed by Duryodhana and the other by the Pandavas. He did not like the idea and he tried to act as a mediator to stop the fighting. Finding it impossible and not wishing to take an active part on behalf of either party, he left Dwarka on the play of visiting various holy places of pilgrimage. He first of all visited the place of pilgrimage known as Prabhasa Setra. He took his baths there and he pacified the local brahmanas and offered oblations to the demigods, Pitas, great sages, and people in general, in accordance with Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. That is the Vedic method of visiting holy places. After this, accompanied by some respectable brahmanas, he decided to visit different places on the bank of the river Saraswati. He gradually visited such places as Pritudaka, Bindusara, Tritakupa, Sudarshana Tirtha, Vishal Tirtha, Brahma Tirtha, and Chakra Tirtha. Besides these, he also visited all the holy places on the bank of the Saraswati river running toward the east. After this, he visited all the principal holy places on the bank of the Yamuna and on the bank of the Ganges. Thus, he gradually came to the holy place known as Naimisharanya.
Hare Krishna. Naimisharanya is still existing in India, and in ancient times it was especially used for the meetings of great sages and saintly persons with the aim of understanding spiritual life and self realization.
A little slower and louder.
When Lord Balram visited that place, there was a great sacrifice being performed by a great assembly of transcendentalists. Such meetings were planned to last thousands of years. When Lord Balram arrived, all the participants in the meeting, great sages, ascetics, brahmanas, and learned scholars, immediately arose from their seats and welcomed him with great honor and respect. Some offered him respects by standing up and then paying obeisances, and those who were elderly, great sages, and brahmanas offered him blessings after standing up. After this formality, Lord Balram was offered a suitable seat, and everyone present worshipped him. Everyone in the assembly stood up in the presence of Balram because they knew him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Education or learning means to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although Lord Balram appeared on the earth as a Kshatriya, all the Brahmanas and sages stood up because they knew who Lord Balram was.
Unfortunately, after being worshipped and seated in his place, Lord Balaram saw Romaharshan, the disciple of Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of Godhead, still sitting on the Vyasasana. He had neither gotten up from his seat nor offered him respects. Because he was seated on the Vyasasana, he foolishly thought himself greater than the Lord. Therefore, he did not get down from his seat or bow down before the Lord. Lord Balaram then considered the history of Romaharshan. He was born in a Sutta family, or a mixed family, born of a Brahmana woman and a Kshatriya man. Therefore, although Romaharshan considered Balaram a Kshatriya, he should not have remained sitting on a higher seat. According to his position by birth, he should not even have accepted the higher sitting position, because many learned brahmanas and sages were present. Lord Balaram also observed that Romaharshan not only refused to come down from his exalted seat, but did not even stand up and offer his respects when Balaramji entered the assembly. Lord Balaram did not like the audacity of Romaharshan, and becoming very angry at him, declared from his seat, "This man, Romaharshan, is so impudent that he has accepted a higher seat than that of all the respectable brahmanas present here, although he was born in a degraded Pratiloma family."
When a person is seated on the Vyasasana, he doesn't generally have to stand to receive a particular person entering the assembly. But in this case, the situation was different because Lord Baladeva is not an ordinary human being. Therefore, although Romaharshana Sutta was voted to the Vyasasana by all the Brahmanas, he should have followed the behavior of other learned sages and Brahmanas present, and should have known that Lord Balarama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Respects are always due him, even though such respects can be awarded in the case of an ordinary man. The appearance of Krishna and Balaram is especially meant for re-establishment of the religious principle. As stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, the highest religious principle is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms that the topmost perfection of religion is to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord.
When Lord Balarama saw that Romahashana Sutta did not understand the highest principle of religion, in spite of his having studied all the Vedas, he certainly could not support his position. Romahashana Sutta had been given the chance to become a perfect Brahmana, but because of his ill behavior in his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his low birth was immediately remembered. Romahashana Sutta had been given the position of a Brahmana, but he had not been born in the family of a Brahmana. He had been born in a Pratiloma family. According to the Vedic concept, there are two kinds of mixed family heritage called Anuloma and Pratiloma. When a male is united with a female of a lower caste, the offspring is called Anuloma. But when a male unites with a woman of a higher caste, the offspring is called Pratiloma. Romahashana Sutta belonged to a Pratiloma family because his father was a Kshatriya and his mother a Brahmana. Because Romahashana's transcendental realization was not perfect, Lord Balarama remembered his Pratiloma heritage. The idea is that any man may be given the chance to become a Brahmana, but if he improperly uses the position of a Brahmana without actual realization, then his elevation to the Brahmanical position is not valid.
After seeing the deficiency of realization in Romahashana Sutta, Lord Balaram decided to chastise him for being puffed up. Lord Balaram therefore said, "This man is liable to be awarded the death punishment because although he has the good qualification of being a disciple of Lord Vyasadeva, and although he has studied all the Vedic literature from this exalted personality, he was not submissive in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, a person who is actually a Brahmana and is very learned must automatically become very gentle also. But although Romahashana Sutta was very learned and had been given the chance to become a Brahmana, he had not become gentle. From this, we can understand that one who is puffed up by material acquisitions cannot acquire the gentle behavior befitting a Brahmana. The learning of such a person is as good as a valuable jewel decorating the hood of a serpent. Despite the valuable jewel on hood, a serpent is still a serpent and is as fearful as an ordinary serpent. If persons does not become meek and humble, all his studies of the Vedas and Puranas and his vast knowledge of Shastras are simply outward dress, like the customer of a theatrical artist dancing on the stage. Lord Balaram considered, I have appeared in order to chastise the false persons who are internally inferior but externally pose themselves as very learned and religious. My killing of such persons is proper to check them from further sinful activity.
Lord Balrama had avoided taking part in the battle of the Kurukshetra, and yet, because of his position as an incarnation, the re-establishment of religious principle was his prime duty. Considering these points, he killed Romaharsha Sutta simply by striking him with Kushastra, which was nothing but a blade of grass. If someone questions How Lord Balram could kill Romaharsha Suta simply by striking him with blade of Kusha Karas? The answer is given in Srimad Bhagavatam by the use of word Prabhu, Master. The Lord position is always transcendental, and because He is omnipotent, He can act as He likes, without being obligated to follow the material laws and principles. Thus, it was possible for him to kill Romaharsha Suta simply by striking him with a blade of Kushakras.
At the death of Romaharsana Suta, everyone present became much aggrieved and cried out, Alas, alas! Although all the Brahmanas and sages present knew Lord Balaram to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they did not hesitate to protest the Lord's action. They humbly submitted, Our dear Lord, we think that your action is not in line with the religious principles. Dear Lord, Yadu Nandana, we may inform you that we Brahmanas posted Romaharsana Suta on that exalted position for the duration of this great sacrifice. He was seated on the Vyasasan by our election, and when one is seated on the Vyasasan, it is improper for him to stand up to receive a person. Moreover, we awarded Romaharsana Suta an undisturbed duration of life. Under the circumstances, since your lordship has killed him without knowing all these facts, we think that your action is equal to killing a Brahmana. Dear Lord, deliverer of all fallen souls, we know for certain that you are the knower of all Vedic principles. You are the master of all mystic powers. Therefore, the Vedic injunctions cannot ordinarily be applied to you. But we respectfully advise you to show your causeless mercy upon others by kindly atoning for this killing of Romaharsana Suta. We do not, however, suggest what kind of act you should perform to atone for killing him. We simply suggest that you adopt some method of atonement so that others may follow your action. What is done by a great personality is followed by the ordinary man.
The Lord replied, Yes, I must atone for this action which may have been proper for me, but it is improper for others. Therefore, I think it is my duty to execute a suitable act of atonement enjoined in the authorized scriptures. Simultaneously, I can also give this Romaharshana Sutta life again with a span of long duration, sufficient strength, and full power of the senses. Not only this, but if you desire, I shall be glad to award him anything else you may ask. I shall be very glad to grant all these boons to fulfill your desires.
This statement by the Lord Balram definitely confirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is free to act in any way. Although his killing of Romaharsana Sutta may be considered improper, he could immediately counteract it with great profit to all. Therefore, one should not imitate the action of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should simply follow the instruction of the Lord. All the great learned sages present realized that although they considered the action of Lord Balram improper, the Lord was immediately able to compensate with greater profits, not waiting to detract from the mission of the Lord in killing Romaharsana Sutta. All of them prayed, Our dear Lord, the uncommon use of your kusha weapon to kill Romaharsana Sutta may remain as it is, because you desired to kill him. He should not be brought to life again. At the same time, Your Lordship may remember that we sages and Brahmanas voluntarily gave him long life, therefore, such a benediction should not be nullified. Thus, the request of all the learned Brahmanas in the assembly was ambiguous because they wanted to keep intact their benediction that Romharshan Sut would continue to live until the end of the great sacrifice. But at the same time, they did not want to nullify Brahmanas killing him. Sorry, nullify Balram's killing him. Hare Krishna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore, solved the problem in a manner befitting his exalted position. He said, because the Son is produced from the body of the Father, the Vedas enjoin that the Son is the Father's representative. Therefore, I say that Ugrashava Sutta, the son of Romaharshan Sutta, should henceforth take his father's position and continue the discourses on the Puranas. And because you wanted Romaharshan to have a long duration of life, this benediction will be transferred to his son. The son, Ugrashava, will therefore have all the facilities you offered, a long duration of life and a good and healthy body with no disturbances and full strength of all the senses.
Lord Balarama then implored all the sages and Brahmanas that aside from the benedictions offered to the son of Romaharshana, they should ask from him any other benediction, and he should be prepared to fulfill it immediately. The Lord thus placed himself in the position of an ordinary Kshatriya and informed the sages that he did not know in what way he should atone for his killing of Romaharshana, but whatever they would suggest, he would be glad to accept. The Brahmanas could understand the purpose of the Lord, and thus they suggested that he atone in a manner beneficial to them. They said, our dear Lord, there is a very powerful demon of the name Balwala. He is the son of Ilvala, and he visits his sacred place of sacrifice every fortnight on the full moon and moonless days and creates a great disturbance to the discharge of our duties in the sacrifice. O descendant of the Sahara family, we all request you to kill this demon. We think that if you kindly kill him, that will be your atonement on our behalf. The demon occasionally comes here and profusely throws upon us contaminated, impure things like pus, blood, stool, urine, and wine. He pollutes this sacred place by showering such filth upon us. After killing Balwala, you may continue touring all the sacred places of pilgrimage for 12 months, and in that way you will be completely freed from all contamination. That is our prescription. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 78th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Dantavakra, Vidurata, and Romaharshana. Hari Bol.
Chapter 79. The liberation of Balvala and Lord Balarama's touring the sacred places. Lord Balarama prepared himself to meet the demon Balvala. At the time when the demon usually attacked the sacred place, there appeared a great hailstorm. The whole sky became covered with dust, and the atmosphere became surcharged with a filthy smell. Just after this, the mischievous demon Balvala began to shower torrents of stool and urine and other impure substances on the arena of sacrifice. After this onslaught, the demon himself appeared with a great trident in his hand. He was a gigantic person, and his black body was like a huge mass of carbon. His hair, his beard, and his mustache appeared reddish like copper, and because of his great beard and mustache, His mouth appeared dangerous and fierce. As soon as he saw the demon, Lord Balarama prepared to attack him. He first considered how he could smash the great demon to pieces. Lord Balarama then called for his plough and club, and they immediately appeared before him. The demon Balvala was flying in the sky, and at the first opportunity Lord Balarama dragged him down with his plough and angrily smashed the demon's head with his club. Balarama striking fractured the demon's forehead, making blood flow profusely. Screaming loudly, the demon, who had been such a great disturbance to the pious Brahmanas, fell to the ground like a great mountain with a red oxide peak being struck and smashed to the ground by a thunderbolt.
Thus, inhabitants of Naimisharanya, learned sages and Brahmanas became most pleased by seeing this, and they offered their respectful prayers to Lord Balaram. They offered their heartfelt blessings to the Lord, and all agreed that none of Lord Balaram's attempts to do something would ever be a failure. The sages and Brahmanas then performed a ceremonial bathing of Lord Balaram, just as the demigods bathe King Indra when he is victorious over the demons. The Brahmanas and sages honored Lord Balaram by presenting him with first-class new clothing and ornaments and the lotus garland of victory. This garland was the reservoir of all beauty and was everlasting. It was never be dried up.
After this incident, the Lord Balram took permission from the Brahmanas assembled at Naimisharanya and accompanied by other Brahmanas went to the bank of river Kaushiki. After taking his bath in this holy place, he proceeded toward the river Sharayu and visited the source of the river. Traveling on the bank of Sharayu river, he gradually reached Prayag, where there is a confluence of three rivers, the Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. Here also he took his bath and he worshipped in the local temples of the demigods and, as enjoined in the Vedic literature, offered oblations to the forefathers and sages. He gradually reached the ashrama of the sage Pulaha and from there went to the river Gandaki and Gomati. After this, he took his bath in the river Vipasha. Then he gradually came to the bank of Sona river. The Sona river is still running as one of the big rivers in Bihar province. He also took his bath there and performed the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. He continued his travel and gradually came to the pilgrimage city of Gaya, where there is celebrated Vishnu temple. According to the advice of his father, Vasudeva, he offered oblations to the forefather in Vishnu temple. From here, he traveled to the delta of the Gangas, where the sacred river Ganga mixed with the Bay of Bengal. This sacred place is called Ganga Sagar. And at the end of the January every year, there is a still great assembly of saintly persons and pious men. Just as there is an assembly of saintly persons in Prayag every year called Maha Mela Fair.
After finishing his bathing and ritualistic ceremonies at Ganga Sagar, Lord Balram proceeded toward the mountain known as Mahendra Parvat, where he met Parshuram, an incarnation of Lord Krishna, and offered him respect by bowing down before him. After this, Lord Balram turned toward southern India and visited the banks of the river Godavari. After taking his bath in the river Godavari and performing the necessary ritualistic ceremonies, he gradually visited the other rivers, the Veena, Pampa, and Bhimarathi. On the bank of the river Bhimarathi is the deity called Swami Kartikeya. After visiting Kartikeya, Lord Balram gradually proceeded to Shailapura, a pilgrimage city in the province of Maharashtra. Shailapura is one of the biggest districts in Maharashtra province. He then gradually proceeded toward Dravida Desha. Southern India is divided into 5 parts called Pancha Dravida. Northern India is also divided into 5 parts called Pancha Gauda. All the important acharyas of the modern age, namely Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka, advented themselves in the Dravida provinces. Lord Chaitanya, however, appeared in Bengal, which is part of the 5 Gauda Deshas.
The most important place of pilgrimage in southern India or Dravida is Venkatachala, commonly known as Balaji. After visiting this place, Lord Balram proceeded toward Vishnu Kanchi, and from there he proceeded on the bank of the Kaveri. While going to Vishnu Kanchi, he visited Shiva Kanchi. Lord Balram took his bath in the river Kaveri. Then he gradually reached Rangakshetra. The biggest Vishnu temple in the world is in Rangakshetra, and the Vishnu deity there is celebrated as Ranganath. There is a similar temple of Ranganath in Vrindavan. Although not as big as a temple in Rangakshetra, it is the biggest in Vrindavan. After visiting Rangakshetra, Lord Balram gradually proceeded towards Madurai, commonly known as Mathura of southern India. After visiting this place, he gradually proceeded towards Setubandha, the place where Lord Ramchandra constructed the stone bridge from India to Lanka, Ceylon. In this particularly holy place, Lord Balram distributed 10,000 cows to the local Brahmana priests. It is the Vedic custom that when a rich visitor goes to any place of pilgrimage, he gives the local priests houses, cows, ornaments, and garments as gifts of charity. This system of visiting places of pilgrimage and providing the local Brahmana priests with all the necessities of life has greatly deteriorated in this age of Kali. The rich section of the population, because of its degradation in Vedic culture, is no longer attracted by these places of pilgrimage, and the Brahmana priests who depend on such visitors have also deteriorated in their professional duty of helping the visitors. These Brahmana priests in the places of pilgrimages are called Panda or Pandita. This means that they are formally very learned Brahmanas and used to guide the visitors in all details of the purpose of coming there, and thus both the visitor and the priests benefit by mutual cooperation.
It is It is clear from the description of Srimad Bhagavatam that when Lord Balram was visiting the different places of pilgrimage, he properly followed the Vedic system. After distributing cows at the Setubandh, Lord Balram proceeded towards the Kritmala and Tamarparni rivers. These two rivers are celebrated as sacred, and Lord Balram bathed in them both. He then proceeded towards Malya hill. Malaya. This hill is very great, and it is said to be one of 7 peaks called the Malaya hills. The great sage Agastya used to live there, and Lord Balram visited him and offered his respects by bowing down before him. After taking the sage's blessings, Lord Balram, with the sage's permission, proceeded towards the Indian Ocean.
At the point of the cape, known today as Cape Comorin, is a big temple of the goddess Durga, who is known there as Kanyakumari. This temple of Kanyakumari was also visited by Lord Ramachandra, and therefore it is to be understood that the temple has been existing for millions of years. From there, Lord Balaram went on to visit the pilgrimage city known as Falguna. Tirtha, which is on the shore of the Indian Ocean or the Southern Ocean. Falguna Tirtha is celebrated because Lord Vishnu, in his incarnation of Ananta, is lying there. From the Falguna Tirtha, Lord Balaram went on to visit another pilgrimage spot known as Panchapsarasa. Panchapsarasa. There also he bathed according to the regulative principles and observed the ritualistic ceremonies. This site is also celebrated as a shrine of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Balaram distributed 10,000 cows to the local Brahmana priests.
From Cape Comorin, Lord Brahma turned towards Kerala. The country of Kerala is still existing in southern India under the name of South Kerala. After visiting this place, he came to Gokarna Tirtha, where Lord Shiva is constantly worshipped. Balaram then visited the temple of Arya Devi, which is completely surrounded by water. From that island, he went to a place known as Surparaka. After this, he bathed in the rivers known as Tapi, Payushni, and Nirvindhya, and then he came to the forest known as Dandakaranya. This is the same Dandakaranya forest where Lord Ramachandra lived while in exile. Lord Balarama next came to the bank of the river Narmada, the biggest river in the central India. On the bank of this sacred Narmada is a pilgrimage spot known as Maheshmati Puri. After bathing there according to the regulative principles, Lord Balarama returned to Prabhasa Tirtha, where he had begun his journey.
When Lord Balarama returned to Prabhasa Tirtha, he heard from the Brahmanas that most of the Kshatriyas in the battle of Kurukshetra had been killed. Balarama felt relieved to hear that the burden of the world had been reduced. Lord Krishna and Balarama appeared on this earth to lessen the burden of military strength created by the ambitious Kshatriya kings. This is the way of materialistic life, not being satisfied by the absolute necessities of life. People ambitiously create extra demands, and their illegal desires are checked by the laws of nature or the laws of God, appearing as famine, war, pestilence, and similar catastrophes. Lord Balarama heard that although most of the Kshatriyas had been killed, the Kurus were still engaged in fighting. Therefore, he returned to the battlefield just on the day Bhimasena and Duryodhana were engaged in a personal duel. As the well-wisher of both of them, Lord Balarama wanted to stop them, but they would not stop.
When Lord Balaram appeared on the scene, King Yudhishthir and his younger brothers, Nakula and Sahadev, as well as Lord Krishna and Arjuna, immediately offered him their respectful obeisances. But they did not speak at all. The reason they were silent was that Lord Balaram was somewhat affectionate toward Duryodhana, who had learned from Balaramji the art of fighting with a club. When the fighting was going on, King Yudhishthira and others thought that Balaram might have come there to say something in favor of Duryodhana, and they therefore remained silent. Both Duryodhana and Bhimsen were very enthusiastic in fighting with clubs, and in the midst of large audience, each very skillfully tried to strike the other. While attempting to do so, they appeared to be dancing. but nonetheless it was clear that both of them were very angry.
Lord Balrama, wanting to stop the fighting, said, "My dear King Duryodhana and Bhishma Sena, I know that both of you are great fighters and are well known in the world as great heroes. But still, I think that Bhimsena is superior to Duryodhana in bodily strength. On the other hand, Duryodhana is superior in the art of fighting with a club. Taking this into consideration, my opinion is that neither of you is inferior to the other in fighting. Under the circumstances, there is a very little chance that one of you will be defeated by the other. Therefore, I request you not to waste your time in fighting in this way. I wish you to stop this unnecessary fight."
The good instruction given by Lord Balram to Bhimasen and Duryodhana was intended for the equal benefit of both of them, but they were so enwrapped in anger against each other that they could remember only their long standing personal enmity. Each thought only of killing the other, and they did not give much importance to the instruction of Lord Balram. Both of them then became like madmen in remembering the strong accusations and ill behavior they had exchanged with each other. Lord Balram, being able to understand the destiny awaiting them, was not eager to go further in the matter. Therefore, instead of staying, he decided to return to the city of Dwarka.
When he returned to Dwarka, he was received with great jubilation by relatives and friends, headed by King Ugrasena and other elder persons, who all came forward to welcome him. After this, he again went to the holy place of pilgrimage at Naimisharanya, and the sages, saintly persons, and brahmanas all stood up to receive him. They understood that Lord Balram, although a Kshatriya, was now retired from the fighting business. The brahmanas and sages, who were always for peace and tranquility, were very much pleased at this. All of them embraced Balram with great affection and induced him to perform various kinds of sacrifices in that sacred spot of Naimisharanya. Actually, Lord Balram had no business performing the sacrifices recommended for ordinary human beings. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he himself is the enjoyer of all such sacrifices. As such, his exemplary action to perform sacrifices was only to give a lesson to the common man to show how one should abide by the injunctions of the Vedas.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead Balram instructed the sages and saintly persons at Naimisharanya on the subject matter of the living entities, relationship with this cosmic manifestation, on how one should regard this whole universe, and on how one should relate with the cosmos in order to achieve the highest goal of perfection. This supreme goal is the understanding that the whole cosmic manifestation rests on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also all pervading, even within the minute atom, by the function of his Paramatma feature.
Lord Balaram then took the Avibrita bath, which is taken after finishing sacrificial performances. After taking his bath, he dressed himself in new silken garments and decorated himself with beautiful jewelry. Amidst his relatives and friends, he appeared to be a shining full moon amidst the luminaries in the sky. Lord Balaram is the personality of Godhead, Ananta himself. Therefore, he is beyond the scope of understanding by mind, intelligence, or body. He descended exactly like a human being and behaved in that way for his own purposes. We can only explain his activities as the Lord's pastimes. No one can even estimate the extent of the unlimited demonstrations of his pastimes because he is all-powerful. Lord Balaram is the original Vishnu. Therefore, anyone remembering these pastimes of Lord Balaram in the morning and evening will certainly become a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus his life will be successful in all respects. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 79th chapter of Krishna, the liberation of Balbala, and Lord Balaram's touring the sacred places. Hari Bol. You have like 5 minutes.
Chapter 80, The Meeting of Lord Krishna with Sudama Brahman. King Parikshit was hearing the narration of the pastimes of Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama from Shukadeva Goswami. These pastimes are all transcendentally pleasurable to hear, and Maharaj Parikshit addressed Shukadeva Goswami as follows: My dear Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the bestower of both liberation and love of God simultaneously. Anyone who becomes a devotee of the Lord automatically attains liberation without having to make a separate attempt. Because the Lord is unlimited, his pastimes and activities for creating, maintaining, and destroying the whole cosmic manifestations are all also unlimited.
Go slower and clear.
Okay. I therefore wish to hear about other pastimes of his which you may not have described as yet. My dear Master, the conditioned souls within this material world are frustrated by searching out the pleasure of happiness derived from sense gratification. Such desires for material enjoyments are always piercing the hearts of conditioned souls. But I am actually experiencing how the transcendental topics of Lord Krishna's pastimes can relieve one from being affected by such material activities of sense gratification. I think that no intelligent persons can reject this method of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord again and again. Simply by hearing, one can remain always steeped in transcendental pleasure. Thus, one will not be attracted by material sense gratification.
In this statement, Maharaja Parikshit has used two important words, Vishanna and Visheshagna. Vishanna means morose. Materialistic people invent many ways and means to become fully satisfied, but actually they remain morose. The point may be raised that sometimes transcendentalists also remain morose. Parikshit Maharaja, however, has used the word Visheshagna. There are two kinds of transcendentalists, namely the impersonalists and the personalists. Visheshagna refers to the personalists who are interested in transcendental variegatedness. The devotees become jubilant by hearing the descriptions of the personal activities of the Supreme Lord, whereas the impersonalists, who are actually more attracted by the impersonal feature of the Lord, are only superficially attracted by the Lord's personal activities. As such, in spite of coming in contact with the pastimes of the Lord, the impersonalists do not fully realize the benefit to be derived, and thus they become just as morose as the materialists do in pursuing their fruitive activities.
King Parikshit continued, the ability to talk can be perfected only by describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord. The ability to work with one's hands can be successful only when one engages himself in the service of the Lord with those hands. Similarly, one mind can be peaceful only when one simply thinks of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. This does not mean that one has to have very great thinking power. One has to understand simply that Krishna, the absolute truth, is all pervasive by his localized aspect of Paramatma. If one can simply think that Krishna as Paramatma is everywhere, even within the atom, then one can perfect the thinking, feeling, and willing functions of his mind. The perfect devotee does not see that material world as it appears to material eyes, for he sees everywhere the presence of his worshipable Lord in his Paramatma feature.
Maharaja Parikshit continued by saying that the function of the ear can be perfected simply by engagement in hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. And the function of the head can be fully utilized when the head is engaged in bowing down before the Lord and his representatives. That the Lord is represented in everyone's heart is a fact, and therefore the highly advanced devotee offers his respects to every living entity, considering that the body is the temple of the Lord, but it is not possible for all man to come to the stage of life immediately, because that stage is for the first class devotees. The second class devotees can consider the Vaishnava or devotee of the Lord to be representative of Krishna, and the devotee who is just beginning, the neophyte or third class devotee, can bow his head before the deity in the temple and before the spiritual master, who is the direct manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in the neophyte stage, in the intermediate stage, or in the fully advanced perfect stage, one can make the function of the head perfect by bowing down before the Lord or his representative. Similarly, one can perfect the function of the eyes by seeing the Lord and his representative. In this way, everyone can elevate the function of the different parts of his body to the highest perfectional stage simply by engaging them in the service of the Lord or his representative. If one is able to do nothing more, he can simply bow down before the Lord and his representative and drink Charnamrita, the water which has washed the lotus feet of the Lord or his devotees.
On hearing these statements of Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami was overwhelmed with devotional ecstasy because of King Parikshit's advanced understanding of the Vaishnava philosophy. Shukadev Goswami was already engaged in describing the activities of the Lord, and when asked by Maharaj Parikshit to describe them further, he continued to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam with great pleasure. There was a very nice Brahmana friend to Lord Krishna. As a perfect Brahmana, he was very elevated in transcendental knowledge, and because of his advanced knowledge, he was not at all attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he was very peaceful and had achieved supreme control over his senses. This means that the Brahmana was a perfect devotee, because unless one is a perfect devotee, he cannot achieve the highest standard of knowledge. It is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that the person who has come to the perfection of knowledge surrenders onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, any person who has surrendered his life for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has come to the point of perfect knowledge. The result of perfect knowledge is that one becomes detached from the materialistic way of life. This detachment means complete control of the senses, which are always attracted by material enjoyment. The senses of the devotee becomes purified, and in that stage, the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the complete field of devotional service.
Although the Brahman.
My dear devotees, that concludes our 1 hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Come back next Sunday, and we'll continue this pastime of Sudama Brahmana. So as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnubhadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swamine Chinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskachadi Satarne. And to each other, Vanchakalpa Druvyaschа Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Jai Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.